You stand in the shadows of a crumbling villa outside Rome. Dawn is thin. The mist breathes cold. Stone sweats. Plaster cracks. The air is stifling, sour with damp ash that clings to your throat. A half-rotten door yields under your palm and groans. Inside, metal scrapes metal. A breath catches, goes still, then breaks. A voice trembles, once trained to flood amphitheaters, now it splinters. Qualis artifex pareo, it whispers. Again, again, again. The most powerful man alive is hiding in a freedman's hovel. No standards, no guards, only fear beating on cold stone, only the hush of a city that refuses to speak his name. His rings click against the blade he cannot lift. His courage leaks away with the night. Qualis artifex. Justice does not rush. It seeps. It finds every crack, every seam. It presses through the swollen wood, and the damp, and the rust until even emperors cannot breathe. You listen at the door. The mist wraps your neck. The hush thickens. This is where it ends. Not in triumph. In a cellar. To know why it ends here, you have to go back to where the rot began. He is born on December 15th, 37 AD, at Antium, salt air, first light, an omen the Romans will later read as fire. His bloodline is a ledger of violence. A great-great-grandfather paraded Gaul with severed heads. A grandfather gouged out a knight's eye in the Forum. His father, Gnaeus Domitius Ahenobarbus, greeted the birth with a sneer. Nothing good could be born of Agrippina and me. And Agrippina the Younger, Caligula's sister, Augustus's great-granddaughter, learned early that affection is a tool, and exile a pause, not an end. At 3, the boy loses his father. Poison whispered, dropsy claimed. He inherits a fraction, then loses even that when Caligula seizes the family wealth. Agrippina is banished to a barren island. The child is parked with his aunt Lepida and 2 servants, a dancer and a barber, hardly the tutors of emperors. In these rooms, reward and fear teach faster than letters. Rome's machine shows him its gears, rank without restraint, spectacle without shame. Nero is a product of the system rather than a personal aberration. To reach the throne, he will need his mother to open the door of power. Claudius sits on the throne, bookish, stammering. Yet emperor all the same. Roman law forbids uncle to wed niece. Agrippina smiles, and the law bends. The Senate drafts an exception. The people are soothed with precedent, and the palace doors swing wide. She marries Claudius, moves her household into the heart of power, and begins the careful choreography of succession. The boy receives a new name, Nero Claudius Caesar, and with it a new destiny. He is paraded in public, assumes the toga of manhood, and, more crucially, is adopted as son and heir over Claudius's own child, Britannicus. Titles follow appointments. Portraits follow coins. Tutors are chosen to polish the image. Corridors learn to whisper a different future. The last knot in the tapestry. Nero weds Octavia, Claudius's daughter. Blood, law, and ceremony now align. The Julio-Claudian machine accepts its next operator. Already, the system reshapes itself around one family's will, an order flexing to fit a person, not a principle. The ascent looks seamless, inevitable, but doors opened by cunning tend to close with blood. Claudius dines, favors mushrooms, and does not rise from the table. The court whispers of a dose hidden in his favorite dish, and a final nudge, a feather tipped in toxin, pressed to the throat under the guise of helping him vomit. Whether accident or artifice, the result is the same. In October of 54, the empire wakes to a new master. Nero is 17. He steps into daylight, wearing mercy like a laurel. Asked to sign the routine executions, he sighs, "How I wish I had never learned to write." Taxes ease. Gifts flow to the people. He invokes Augustus as his model, commissions counsel from philosophers, and lets Rome exhale. The messaging is immaculate. Corridors rehearse the word clemency as if it were policy, but the distance between message and behavior is already visible to those at the table. Agrippina smiles too broadly. Senators calculate. Servants watch the tasters. The Roman world learns, yet again, that image can govern as effectively as law. Political PR is not a modern invention. That promise of mercy will shatter at the very next banquet. At a palace banquet, Britannicus, 14, slight, unthreatening, asks that his wine be cooled with water. The cup returns, ordinary in every way, except the drop prepared by Locusta, Rome's professional poisoner. He drinks. A shudder runs through him. Breath shortens. Eyes roll. The room freezes. Nero does not. He continues to eat, voice level, assuring the guests it is merely an epileptic fit. He has them. Servants hesitate, then remove the boy as if tidying a spill. Conversation resumes in careful fragments. The lesson lands louder than any trumpet. Mercy was a costume. Succession is a blood sport. The murder is public yet deniable, theatrical yet efficient, a signature. In one course, the new regime defines its grammar, plausible stories for the Senate, terror for the household, silence for the city. This is the moment critics of Nero will later point to, the first clean break between the promise of clemency and the practice of rule. The judgment stands. Neutralizing a rival fixes the trajectory of a despot. Once he has tasted blood, a tyrant rarely stops at one victim. And if a brother can be erased over dinner, what barrier could a mother possibly be? The plan is engineered cruelty. A pleasure boat with a collapsible roof waited to crush on command. Agrippina boards with attendants. The mechanism fails. A companion dies. Agrippina does not. She slips into the black water, swims for shore, and lives to tell the tale. Panic replaces subtlety. That night, Anicetus and armed men reach her villa. She faces them standing, drenched and unafraid. The blades do what the sea would not. Rome reels. Whispers multiply. The emperor has murdered his own mother. He even inspected the body. He boasted of freedom at last. Whether each detail is true matters less than the new reality. No bond is sacred, no tie immune. The Senate measures its words, households their breaths. The city understands something irreversible has happened. Once a mother becomes the enemy, what taboo remains? This is the hinge in Nero's arc, not merely eliminating a rival, but crossing into moral derangement. The methodical pragmatist gives way to the man who will seek spectacle in punishment and art in pain. With the strongest brake removed, the machine begins to run hot. And when restraint dies, purges and pleasures quickly become indistinguishable. With Agrippina gone, consolidation becomes a habit. Kinsmen with pedigrees too close to the throne are sidelined or erased. Exiles dressed as precautions, executions framed as necessity. Names like Silanus and Plautus vanish from invitations, then from Rome. Confiscations swell the treasury and shrink the circle of the unafraid. Burrus, the praetorian prefect who once steadied the young emperor, dies, officially of a throat ailment, unofficially of whispers. Without Burrus, Seneca loses his ballast. The philosopher requests retirement, returns estates to the crown, and discovers that silence is merely another room in the palace. Into the vacuum step men who understand what pleases, flattery, compliance, and noise. Nero discovers he prefers noise. He builds tracks and races his teams, hair flying beneath a laurel. He steps onto stages as singer and actor, rewriting decorum so that applause can be policy. Court calendars bend around competitions. Law yields to leisure. Punishments, too, begin to feel like entertainment. Each fall from favor, a spectacle. Each humiliation, a crowd pleaser. When power is unchecked, play becomes the rule. Punishment, a pleasure. And pleasure will soon demand a new empress. One obtained the way everything is now obtained, at someone else's expense. Octavia is useful until she isn't. Accusations arrive on cue, adultery with convenient witnesses, confessions coached under pain. Rome does not buy it. Crowds surge. Statues of Poppaea are hauled down. Octavia's images are crowned with flowers. For a moment, Nero retreats. The empress returns to the palace. Poppaea to a villa. Then the narrative resets. Treason is alleged. Octavia is shipped to Panditaria, the wind-scoured island where inconvenient women disappear. The sentence is framed as mercy. Her veins are opened. The process is slow, procedural, irreversible. Proof is demanded in the capital, and proof arrives. Her head presented to Poppaea like a grotesque dowry. 12 days later, the wedding. Gold, music, a song from the groom. Rome understands the choreography. A coronation built on subtraction. A marriage set upon a grave is remembered for a long time in Rome. This episode is a mirror of gendered violence and the political instrumentalization of the body, fertility as credential, rumor as weapon, flesh as paperwork. It also marks a turn in public sentiment. The city can feel the line crossing. And soon, in fire and rumor, that sentiment will ignite. The fire begins near the Circus Maximus and runs with the wind. For 6 days and 7 nights, Rome is a furnace. Alleys become chimneys. Beams explode. Shrines collapse into cinders. When the flames tire, a third of the city is ash, the rest smoke and grief. Rumor climbs higher than the embers. Some say Nero watched from a tower and sang of Troy. The Iliad carried on a city's last breaths. Whether that scene is true matters less than the optics that follow. Before the rubble cools, surveyors pace the ruins. Lines are chalked, walls condemned, neighborhoods erased. Plans unfold for the Domus Aurea, the Golden House, a rotating dining room like the heavens, walls skinned in gold and shell, an artificial lake where streets once tangled, and at the center a colossal Nero turning toward the sun. The project rises too quickly, too grandly for a people still sleeping under canvas. Disaster plus luxury construction is the formula for losing legitimacy. The city reads the message clearly. His palace is being built on their losses. And when a ruler cannot bear the weight of a catastrophe, he looks for shoulders to carry it. To avoid responsibility, he will find a name to take the blame. Whispers need a target. Policy supplies one. The strange Eastern sect, the Christians, speak of a world ending in fire, refuse the old gods, meet at night. They fit. Accusations bloom. Arsonists, haters of mankind. Arrests follow patterns. Confessions are staged. Punishments are curated. In Nero's gardens, night is bright. Prisoners are coated in pitch and set alight. Human torches flaring as guests stroll and the emperor recites. Others are sewn into animal skins and thrown to dogs. Some are crucified in tableau, costumed as mythic figures so the deaths can double as theater. Nero directs like a showrunner, placement, lighting, timing, until pain becomes programming and applause becomes assent. When fear is organized, it becomes policy. This is propaganda by violence, turning blood into stage light and grief into a message. Blame diverted, dissent frozen, power reaffirmed before a paying audience. Rome learns to watch, then to look away. But habituation dulls shock only briefly. The appetite that makes spectacles of strangers will soon consume what he claims to love. In the palace, Poppaea carries a child. The emperor carries an anger that will not stay sheathed. Poppaea is pregnant. The court tiptoes. For a brief season, Nero tries on tenderness, gifts, attentions, a father's pose. Then, according to hostile ancient tradition, a corridor argument turns violent. A blow lands. Both mother and unborn child are lost. Whether the specifics are exact, the wound is real. Something in him snaps where grief should have grown. He searches the palace for an echo and finds a boy, Sporus, young, slight, resembling the dead empress. Command becomes medicine in his mind. Household physicians are ordered to make the youth safe from manhood. Wardrobe and tutors refit him into Poppaea's outline. Rome watches a grotesque ceremony. Veils, contracts, a marriage the law cannot recognize, but fear must applaud. In public, he parades an empress-shaped absence. In private, he insists the performance continue. The person becomes a prop, affection, a script. Power here turns desire into a tool for recreating memory. The past is not mourned, it is remanufactured. When reality fractures, he paints over it with an illusion. And illusions, once enthroned, demand audiences. Soon Nero will carry his theater beyond Rome, into Greece, until the stage lights reveal how thin his empire has become. Courtiers learn a new etiquette: perform or perish. Senators and knights are summoned to the arena, stripped of rank and handed props, masks for the stage, helmets for the sand. Some act opposite the emperor, forced to miss cues so he can rescue the scene. Others bleed in the amphitheater to prove their loyalty in public. Titles become costumes. Dignity becomes scenery. At night, Nero prowls the city in disguise with a coterie of revelers. Doors kicked in, shopkeepers beaten, passers-by dragged into alleys. By morning, those who fought back discover they have assaulted Caesar. The charge is retroactive. The fear is immediate. The parties stretch from sunset to dawn, courses of meat, courses of pain. Prisoners are displayed between lyre solos, naked backs are whipped to the beat. Now and then a cage opens and something with teeth resolves the scene. Nero offers a theory. Art is truer when suffering is real, and the court nods because the alternative is bleeding for the encore. The crowd that claps today will be the court of tomorrow. Aestheticizing violence is how cruelty becomes ordinary. And once the audience grows accustomed to the show, the stage must get bigger. Greece is waiting, with laurel crowns already polished. Greece becomes a year-long stage. Nero enters every festival, singer, actor, charioteer, and wins them all. Judges learn the script. Crowds learn the cue. At Olympia, he's thrown from his chariot, fails to finish, and is crowned anyway. Laurels pile up, hundreds, then thousands, while letters home report unprecedented triumphs. The cost is real. Ships, entourages, prizes, bribes. The treasury thins, new taxes fatten resentment. Back in the provinces, pride turns to shame. Governors who once flattered now flinch at the headlines. In Gaul, Vindex raises the standard of revolt. In Hispania, Galba answers with legions and a promise of a different emperor, Africa mutters. The praetorians in Rome count their donatives and wonder whether better offers are coming. The Senate listens, then pretends not to. Political theater works until the audience feels the bill. Economic exhaustion plus public humiliation becomes the breaking point of the social contract. The empire has watched its emperor compete for applause while its grain ships and pay chests run light. The applause fades. The exits open. When the audience leaves the theater, the show is over. And in Rome, the house lights are coming up on a ruler who doesn't yet know the performance has ended. June 68. Rumor hardens into orders. The praetorians count Galba's promised donatives and decide loyalty is a negotiable art. Guard rooms on the Palatine go quiet. Corridors echo without armor. By morning, Nero discovers that fear does not keep watch at night. The Senate assembles, and the words he used on others return to him. Hostis publicus, public enemy. The sentence adds ritual humiliation and death. Messengers vanish. Doors that once swung open refuse to move. He asks for a horse, a cohort, a plan. He receives silence. He toys with escape to Egypt, the fantasy of a safer stage. He summons musicians. Even hirelings plead illness. Rings click uselessly against a sheath he cannot lift. The rooms feel smaller, the palace colder. The walls of the palace are thinner than the walls of the human heart. An empire of fear collapses faster than an empire of respect. At dusk, he slips out in a cloak, not in triumph, but in haste. No standards, no crowds, only a freedman's name to cling to. Phaon. With a secretary, a valet, and Sporus in tow, he moves through gardens and olive rows toward the suburbs. Ahead waits a borrowed house, a dugout passage, and the last room he will ever enter. In Phaon's cellar, the dirt damp, the beam low. Bad news arrives in waves. Galba's men are in the city. The Senate's decree is worse than death. Stripped, flogged, flung into the Tiber. Praetorians hunt for a head to trade. Then the cruelest message: the palace is being ransacked by his own slaves. Statues, paintings, costumes, liars. Nero folds, weeping, "They're stealing my things." Footsteps grind on the floor above. Time shrinks. Epaphroditus urges action. The others stare at the door. Nero clutches a dagger as if it were venom. He touches the point to his throat, shivers, stalls. Voices outside. Armor scrapes. He presses. The cut is clumsy, shallow, noise more than wound. Epaphroditus leans in, guiding steel where resolve will not go. Blood finds the dirt. Breath rasping, he returns to the line he wants for history. Qualis, artifex, pareo. What an artist dies in me. Not a plea, a brand. After the curtain falls, what will the audience do? Coda and judgment. Swaggering self-narration to the final breath. No remorse, only grief for props. The Empire's terror machine ends not with defiance, but with a man who cannot imagine a world without his costumes. Rome exhales and then erupts. Crowds spill into streets that still smell of smoke, crowning the statues of Nero's victims and defacing his own. The Senate moves with the people's rhythm. Damnatio memoriae. Name chiseled off inscriptions, portraits melted, titles revoked. Sculptors become executioners of marble, archivists, surgeons of ink. The emperor who demanded worship is reduced to blank plaques and broken noses. Attention turns to his dream palace. The golden house is not simply looted, it is buried. Halls are packed with rubble, ceilings entombed under public works. The artificial lake, his mirror of the sun, is drained to make room for an amphitheater for everyone else. In time, crowds will roar where he once meant to stroll. Spectacle returns to the people, not the man. And Sporus? For a moment he is sheltered, a tragic echo carried from household to household. Then the record blurs, taken up, paraded, perhaps cornered by new cruelty. His trail fades the way victims' trails often do, into rumor. Erasing a name is simple. Erasing a lesson is not, because smashing symbols does not reform systems. It only rearranges the stage. The audience still needs a warning, and history is already clearing its throat. The Julio-Claudian line ends with a whimper in a cellar. What follows is the year of the four emperors, Galba, Otho, Vitellius, Vespasian, 4 names flashing like warning lights on a failing machine. The sources, Tacitus, Suetonius, Cassius Dio, write with a steady disgust, catalogues of cruelty, footnotes of rumor, and the constant refrain that unchecked power corrodes both ruler and realm. The lesson is not subtle. Absolute power turns fear into policy, spectacle into governance, and human beings into props. Nero's story isn't ancient. It's a wiring diagram for every tyranny. Propaganda to sell the dream, scapegoats to pay the bill, and at the end, self-collapse dressed as theater. When adoration becomes currency, conscience is foreclosed. When applause is mandatory, truth goes missing. And when the stage burns, the audience pays. When power needs an audience, accountability needs history.